welcome to the Media Shift podcast. My name is Chris Schrage. Welcome. I've got a great guest with us today. We're talking with Jon Kleemann of 106.3 Now FM out in Cheyenne, Wyoming. John's going to talk with us today. We appreciate his time about what it's like to work in media and all the drastic changes really with the internet and all these new forms of media. So Jon, thank you so much for joining us. Let me get your mic potted up here and we'll get you in here. Thank you so much, bud. How's it going?
I'm pretty good, man. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no sweat, man. It's a pleasure. Basically, I've been enamored. I've been a radio guy for 10, 15 years. Most people may know, may not know. But I've been enamored with radio. And radio is kind of like an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing, in my opinion. When I started, we were working on cassette tapes. I mean, I don't know if any of the kids that might watch this or listen to this will know what a cassette tape is. But it was basically how we recorded our audio. And there's been, and to even people older than us, they would say they were working reel to reels and playing vinyl records. So
right.
the whole game has changed in a lot of ways, but in so many ways it's remained the same. It's still you going into a booth for 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, talking with the people, playing music. What's that like, first of all? Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, sure thing, man. Yeah, it's like you said, it is ever evolving, really. And my first full-time gig that I had, we were still loading CDs and everything, which we think that's kind of crazy now. Even though we've talked about the reel-to-reel guys and everything that came before that. But then, yeah, I was still loading CDs and everything. And now everything's, it's all automation and everything. Of course, there's so much more that goes into it with like the scheduling of the music and things like that. But at the same time, it's easy. We don't even have to, press a button to get the music to play, really, unless, we're working on a live board. So, it's just kind of crazy how everything's they made a lot of things simpler, but also at the same time, every day is a challenge. So,
yeah, no. And I would imagine that's kind of changed a lot of the responsibilities of day to day around a station. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, we would have been like, okay, we've got to go record these commercials onto CD for the client. Now it's like, okay, well, you've got to go on social media and promote this event. Like things that when we started just weren't really a thing. I mean, Facebook was in infancy in 2004, right. 2005. It was at a point where all these radio stations didn't really necessarily quite understand what it was or that it had potential value. Now, looking back, we see obviously what it does. But tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing up there in Wyoming and how that relates to all this stuff.
Yeah. And the company that I work for in particular, Town Square Media. And, I've worked for the company not only in Cheyenne, but also I worked in Bismarck for about almost 5 years for Town Square within the Bismarck market before I got here. And I've been here for almost 2 years now. But even at that time when I came into the company, they had everything's kind of changing in radio. So we need to kind of take this digital mindset. A lot of it was, the posts that we put on Facebook, the posts that you see on websites, articles, and it's taking the local content from, the stuff that you talk about on air and, put that into a digital format. And a lot of it was, hey, we need to get our post clicks and everything. And I had never heard that before, but I mean, at the same time, I had some writing experience. So I was like, okay, well, I never saw myself as someone who was going to be an internet journalist or whatever you might want to call that as an additional duty. But that's kind of came along with the territory. And now it's kind of like just a routine thing from day to day. Along with all the on-air responsibilities. So
yeah, that is the way it's gone. And it was amazing for me too, when it happened, when I really noticed that transition of that people were listening online or that we could at least track them better online. The biggest thing for me that I realized, and this is what I really want to do with the podcast. I want to find out when you guys or when everyone that I know that has worked in this industry had that aha moment. Like when did you realize that like this is going to be the thing or this thing is changing? Were you at a particular station in the Midwest at the time? But was it when you guys made this shift to new digital media where you're at currently?
I think it was kind of when I got my first taste of it was my second full-time job. I think it was back in 2013. I think it was 2013 or 2014. Well, anyway, like I'm getting my years mixed up, but I was at a active rock station. It was Real Rock 1015 in Hot Springs, Arkansas at the time. I don't think it exists anymore. Like I think the format changed and such, but at the time,
radio.
Yeah, exactly. Right. At the time, my program director, he was big on, hey, let's get this on video. Let's get it up on Facebook, immediately. I didn't have to do any of that at my first full-time job like that. Like I said, that was the one where I was still loading CDs and everything. And we didn't really care too much about what the internet was doing. I mean, we were at that particular station before the Active Rock one, we were like a hot AC for farmers who were out and everything in the farming community. So nobody got on the internet. They didn't care. So, but then when it got to this, it's a bigger market and everything, it's kind of a little bit of a resort city for Hot Springs, Arkansas was what that was. And so it's like, well, people want to see this up online and everything. So as soon as we did an interview, it was like, hey, get this online immediately. And then that was kind of my first taste of it and just getting used to doing that. And it was such a drastic way of what I thought it would be when I initially caught the radio bug. So, but it's evolved along the way now. And now I just kind of expect that.